So, despite the fact that he was a false person, he did not come to a tragic end because of the British support. We, of course, wanted to destroy him, the ulama said. But what could we do? British Raj was so big and it was a very powerful government. So that is the reason why he flourished. It's not a sign of Allah's closeness or dearness or Allah's regard for him. So they said your argument is meaningless. It was not Allah who supported him. It was the British who supported him. We say, all right, although there is no sign, no evidence whatsoever, let's take your word for granted for a while. So if he was planted by the British, and if you wanted to destroy this plant, on whose side was Allah? Tell us. First decide this is. He has to be on your side. Now they have to admit, yes, Allah was on our side. So let's see the bout, a great competition between two warriors. One on one side, the ulama, all the ulama of the world together with Allah standing behind. On the other, one Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian with the British Empire behind him. Who wins the contest? Who wins the battle? You say it was the British who rendered us helpless. We wanted to destroy him. But what would we do? I tell them, why don't you read the Quran, what the Quran has to say about it? The Holy Quran says, وَلَوْ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْضُ الْأَقَاوِيلِ لَأَخَذْنَا مِنْهُ بِالْيَمِينِ ثُمَّ لَقَطَعْنَا مِنْهُ الْوَتِينَ فَمَا مِنْكُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ عَنْهُ حَاجِزِينَ. The message is clear. Allah says, you say, he taqawwala ala Allah. Allah says, man taqawwala alayya, and that is the meaning, of course. What I do to him? He said, I take him by the right hand and destroy, sever his lifeline. Destroy him, demolish him. And none among you can stand between me and him. This should be remembered in context of our discussion. Now, the ultimate result of this would be, if you analyze the whole situation, that this verse was revealed about 1300 years before the time of Masih Maud Islam. At that time, of course, there were no British. So, because there were no British, so this verse stood good. But when the British came, when they decided to stand between Allah and the recipient of his wrath, then Allah couldn't do anything. Allah said to them, you know, that is my end. I can reach this far, no further. This is the practical reality. Yes, this is what they believe.
Yes, yes.
That Allah and Mullah on one side, one man, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, being supported by the British, not visibly. That also is receding somewhere in the background. You see, don't see any sign of his help. Yet Allah fails to destroy him despite his positive commitment in the Holy Quran. So what do you infer from that? The mullah. In fact, what you are trying to prove is that Allah is not God, it is the British who are God. And because this God was against us, so we couldn't do anything. So then I turn to them again and tell them, all right, when the British rule came to an end in 1947, let's start from there. A new beginning should be taken. When you are given full support by the so-called Muslim governments of Pakistan, when they are all on your side and they all are bent on destroying Ahmadiyya, what happens to them? What happens to Ahmadiyya? Where are they today? Where is Ahmadiyya today? What is the state of Pakistan, who is such a favorite of Allah because they are number one enemies of Ahmadiyya? What is happening to them themselves? And what is happening to Ahmadiyya today? Why should they have rewarded Ahmadiyya anyway? Because we were the main opponents of the spread of Christianity, not only in India, but all over the world. And we still continue to do that. The proof, our expenditure and all our incomes are budgeted, openly published, and edited, audited by all the governments of the world, wherever we are. This is the only community which, with entire integrity and honesty, keeps all the funds it receives from the members of the community, budgets them, publishes them, and expenditure is also shown. So everything is there for anybody to see. Nothing is secret about it. So we are not funded by the British, but those who say we are funded, I will read proofs from authentic books that they have been funded, they have been planted by the British. Their madaris I have mentioned, the institutions and religious.
Yes.
Now Saudi Arabia is their main mentor and supporter. I'll quote from the historical, dependable, authentic historic books of history that Saudi Arabia was funded throughout its attempt to establish an empire of their own regime. And they were given arms, they were supported, they were not permitted to have an independent foreign policy at all. Whenever they fell foul, even so slightly, of the British, and when they brought them to books and questioned them as to why they did it, they fell down, prostrated before them and said, "You are our father, you are our mother, you are our everything. For God's sake, forgive." Now these are non-British agents, who have been funded, who have been installed. And we are the British agents, whom the British never paid a penny to support their cause. So we can find out who helped him, who promoted his cause. He has to be the master who founded him, who planted this awlam, and that is Allah. When everybody had abandoned him, his own family, everybody, then Allah showed him certain signs of his own nearness and stood up with him. And I'll quote only a few ilhamat and wahi of Hazrat Muhammad at the period when all ulama, even his own family members, had totally abandoned him. He was left alone. There was God and he. There was no British either to help him and to support him. Then Allah told him that दुनिया में एक नज़ीर आया मगर दुनिया ने उसे कबूल ना किया, मैं उसे कबूल करूंगा और बड़े जोर और हमलों से उसकी सच्चाई को जाहिर कर दूंगा. Then he said, मैं तेरी तबलीग को ज़मीन के किनारों तक पहुंचाऊंगा. That a warner came to the world and the world rejected him. But God has accepted him because it is his warner. And he would see to it that with great signs, which would be awful signs, and overwhelming signs of punishment and others, God will prove the truth of his own warner which he has sent. Then he says, they say will be confined to Qadian and die here and nobody would know your name. That is what his opponents were saying. You will die out, they say, and even the inhabitants of Qadian, after a generation or two, will forget your name. What Allah told him was a different story. He said, मैं तेरी तबलीग को ज़मीन के किनारों तक पहुंचाऊंगा. I promise that I'll convey your message to the corners of the earth. Don't worry, don't be disheartened.
लब्बैक सैयदी लब्बैक या इमामना लब्बैक मुर्शदी.